My name is Cinthya Ippoliti, and I'm the head of Teaching and Learning Services for the libraries. And what I'm going to be talking about today is a pilot that we did for the Terrapin Learning Commons with digital badges. So just to give you a super quick intro about my areas of responsibility. So I'm responsible for information literacy instruction for all first-year programs. So those are the big classes like English 101, UNIV 100, those kinds of programs. I'm also responsible for the Terrapin Learning Commons, so all the staffing, the spaces, and the services, and some other things as well, such as technology training for the libraries and the librarians specifically. So I kind of have a lot of different elements under my areas, but they're kind of all related. So I'm just gonna, so actually what you see, the graphic here are actually the digital badges that were awarded this semester. So you can kind of get to see what they look like, and I'll talk a little bit about what they are as well. But just to give you a really brief outline, so I'll give you a quick intro to what badges are if you're not familiar with them, and also what our workshop series, the progression that it's taken, what it looks like now, and sort of what are the ideas that we're thinking about for the future, and talking a little bit about next steps. Okay, so if you don't know what digital badges are, basically they are tokens or electronic, basically tokens that are given to measure some kind of achievement. So this started in the gaming industry, and the EduCause is a really good series, this like 7 things you need to know, and they did a really good write-up of what badges are. But they began, so in the gaming world, to show skill or to say you've achieved something or a benchmark or an outcome, and they sort of have started to explode in the academic setting. And they're kind of an alternative to sort of traditional grades. So, and they acknowledge the experience gained not just in the classroom, but in like a variety of different learning contexts. So that's why I found them very interesting, and actually heard about them at a conference I was at earlier this year at the what's it called? Yes, NMC, New Media Consortium Conference, where they were mentioned, and I started looking into them, and I thought they were really interesting. So they are flexible, and they're awarded online, and the cool thing about badges is that, and I'll talk about creditly.com, I'll show it if we have time at the end of the presentation, but they can be essentially embedded in resumes, they can be shared electronically, and again, so they're very flexible, so you can kind of send them to people, you can award them, and they can, again, be elements to say, yes, I'm certified in something, or I'm an expert in something. And the best kind of analogy for this is sort of like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts when you have, you earn your leadership badge or stuff like that. That's kind of what this is built on. And they're also scalable. So you can have a series of smaller badges leading up to one big badge, or you can just award a badge for a particular outcome or particular set of benchmarks or learning. So I think they're pretty interesting. So we kind of were trying to figure out, okay, this is sort of new up-and-coming kind of technology and a way to think about learning, so what can we do in the Learning Commons? So just to give you a really quick background about the TLC workshops. So they started very informally, fall of 2012, because there wasn't one area in the libraries that sort of dealt with citation management, and that was how it all got started. So they came to us and they said, well, the Terrapin Learning Commons is sort of the undergraduate place or space for students. You kind of do general education. Can you teach just general how to do bibliographic management, and what are the tools associated with that? So we said sure, and we began with EndNote Web, which is a free add-on essentially to one of the databases that we have. It's called Web of Knowledge, or Web of Science as well. So it's just a free product that's online, and students can sign up for it. We don't have a subscription to the desktop version of EndNote, which is really, really popular, but we do have subscriptions to things like RefWorks, and we also have additional things that we show like Zotero. So we kind of try to do a little bit of all the different kinds of tools. And we started with EndNote, and then we also added, in the meantime, we had added a big poster, plotter printer, and so we decided to add that as sort of an additional kind of set of offerings. So this is how it got started. So citation management and poster printing, very related. So they're not, obviously, but we decided to say, okay, what do we have available that we can kind of start to teach students about that they might not learn about otherwise? Interesting statistics. We started again with the EndNote workshops alone, and we had about 87 participants. Then we expanded to all the different other citation management tools that we have available and the poster printing. And you can see that from fall to spring, the citation management kind of went down, the poster printing sort of went up, but by the time we got to fall of 2013, the statistics went down. So that's an interesting trend, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But basically, you can see that between fall 2012, EndNote and fall 2013, images, primary sources, multimedia, EndNote and Zotero, and 3D and poster printing, the offerings kind of expanded. And so the idea was, how can we sort of put together common elements and start to build a thread, or what I like to call a curriculum. So this is what it looks like now. So we decided as a pilot, let's call it a program, let's give it a little bit of context. So what can we do with it? So we decided to bring in a variety of partners from across the libraries, and actually Carlton is one of them who's sitting here for the multimedia production part, because obviously myself and the TLC staff, we don't all have the expertise needed to teach all of these workshops, not yet anyway. And so, but there are experts across the libraries that do. So for example, Carlton's area deals with multimedia, and they actually taught 3 parts of the series on what kind of software we have available, how to edit videos, so kind of like sort of the basics of multimedia production. And then we also had partners from across the other libraries, art and architecture, to teach the visual elements, which makes sense, as well as our own TLC coordinators and assistants that taught the poster printing. I did one workshop on the EndNote, and then we had engineering and sciences library do Zotero, and then we also had DSS, which is our internal IT department, assist as well. And then we advertised it as widely as we possibly could, and we advertised it on the monitors, on Twitter. We have a Facebook page, we have student groups, we have Center for Teaching Excellence, and of course we created a web presence for it. So basically, students can register for the workshops, and they can kind of get all the information on the website. So that's sort of the workshop in-person element of the training series. But we added an additional element for the digital badges. So again, we've got the in-person workshops. There's kind of 4 streams. But then we decided to create a non-credit Canvas course to go along with that, because really, how are you going to measure that the students, learned anything in these workshops? And before, what we did is we did sort of a quick assessment right after the session. Oh, did you find it useful? Yes or no? Which we're still going to do, but we really wanted to make it a little bit more robust and kind of see where it would go. So we decided to, like I said, create the online component to go along with the workshops. So here's what that looks like. So the course in Canvas basically introduces everything, and the 4 modules that are available in Canvas mirror the 4 sort of paths, if you will, of the training series. So it kind of describes what it is. You've got the badges right there, and you've got links and everything, and I'll show you exactly what the content looks like. So this is what the modules look like. So they're all set up the same way. There's the module content, and I'll show you a specific example of one, basically where we put in the outcomes and what we expect the students to learn out of that particular path or area of focus. Then we have links to additional resources in the libraries and as well as outside. And then we have a quiz, and that's how we basically measured the learning. And I know it's really hard to see, but there you can get a sense of, what are the, as a result of attending the workshops and reading the content online, what are some of the kinds of things that you can expect to learn? And then we added some links to our own resources, as well as, for example, this is for the 3D printer, videos from Thingiverse, and a bunch of other resources as well. Our lessons learned and sort of what are we thinking about for the future. So obviously, number of attendees has decreased, and I don't know, but the work went, the workload did increase, especially, creating all the content. I mean, it didn't take a huge amount of time, but it did take time for me to input all the information, create the quizzes, and kind of get all of that going. I had to create the badges, which is actually the fun part, and I'll show you that as well. The things like poster printing, not so much. People don't seem to be that interested, presumably because they already know now that it's on the TLC floor. We've got it. They've been using it. They're like, so what? Who cares? But I was kind of interested that the 3D printer didn't garner a little bit more attention. We've been getting a lot of individual requests, like how do I print something in 3D? How do I make this? How do I do that? But maybe they don't really need a class for it specifically, and there's plenty of online content. Workshops are definitely not always held at a convenient time for students. We do have to be mindful that our partners, they have time constraints as well, so it was mostly like, okay, when can you teach the class as opposed to when do students really need it. And as I think we've already talked a little bit about, there's kind of no disciplinary or university-wide context yet for these badges. They're kind of sort of floating out there, and it's like, great, you got a badge, so what? And again, how do we sort of accommodate the just-in-time versus the just-in-case? We can't be, right now we're not quite at the point where we could say, do this video, do this thing, you've got the badge, you're done, out the door kind of thing. Because again, it was a pilot, and we were kind of trying to figure out what would work best. So what are we doing, or what I would hope to do? So definitely we want to provide more online content. So I think we're recognizing that for some things, maybe the in-person workshops are not necessarily the most useful, and trying to go back and talk with the partners who provided the instruction, which we're going to do in December, kind of say, okay, what worked and what didn't? Can we make the Canvas presence, as Mary, you were saying, a little more robust so that it is more like a tutorial place where students can go anytime. We also are going to do a survey of participants to ask them what their feedback is, what they liked, what they didn't like. Hopefully, again, we'll get enough responses to make it meaningful. And then this is something that we're planning on doing for spring. We want to launch a kind of a technology needs assessment for students, because we want to find out what are the skills that they need that they're not getting elsewhere, what sort of next generation of commons type services they want that they're not getting or they're not seeing, clarify the role of the libraries and sort of the commons at the university level, and figure out, okay, where do we fit in, how much support for technology for students do we do, should we do, how do we partner with learning technologies and other entities on campus. And then also get at that technology-related competency for students. And I think this is probably the most important one of all, because I've done some very preliminary research, and there isn't a whole lot out there on campus or university level technology competencies. I mean, everybody has them as part of their gen ed outcomes for assessment, but we don't seem to have a good model for what does that really mean, and where are these students getting these skills. If they're not getting it in the classroom with the faculty, where they're going. And oftentimes they come to us, but we're not necessarily right now prepared to meet that need. So we're trying to kind of do some of that. And then again, how do we make the connection between usage of services and resources and academic and learning, which is again that kind of big piece, and sort of launching slightly into like learning analytics and sort of all of that whole movement, which is happening as well. And by the way, we're going to be doing a combination of surveys to get at the quantitative data, but then we're going to be doing some focus groups with students and faculty as well. That's kind of a separate branch, but we're going to focus on the students, and we're hoping to use some design thinking elements, like trim the product tree and do some kind of different things to get them to solicit their feedback on a lot of this stuff. So we're hoping to make it pretty comprehensive. And then, because I, have nothing else to do with my time, what we're actually thinking of doing, thanks, Carlton. What we're actually thinking of doing is starting to create that context exactly, which it doesn't have right now. And we're in the very beginning stages. We've just broached the conversation with courses like UNIV 100 and start to say, can we overlay this skill set on top of the content that's taught in those courses, which are the introductory baseline courses for the students coming into the university, to see if they might be a really good fit and blend the two together. And then they would get a digital badge for that course, and if enough sections come on board and we grow it, it might start to get some traction at the university level, and we might be able to make those badges more meaningful than just, again, I got an iPad mini for my badge kind of thing. There's a couple of different places you can go and actually create these badges. I did sign up for the big one. There's two that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's more. There's this site called credly.com, and they actually did a presentation at EDUCAUSE. It was an online webinar, so they're credible. And then there's the Mozilla Backpack. I signed up for Mozilla Backpack and found it incredibly confusing, so I gave up. And then when I found out about Credly, I said, you know, this is easy. I can do this. Let me just sign up. So let me go ahead and log in, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So basically, you just edit this, and you can pick a shape from the ones that are given. So because it is free, because you are going through the website, you know, you are somewhat limited in what you can do. I'm sure if you are graphically inclined, you can design your own, but I don't quite know how you would just upload the whole badge. I know you can upload images to the system, so I'm not quite sure how that would work. But basically, you can see that I can like change the shape. You can upload any icon. There's a lot that are through the Creative Commons, so you get the copyright, so you don't have to worry about, you know, kind of stealing off the internet. And they have a ton, so they've got like 3,000 icons you can pick from, and all you have to do is just give them attribution in the notes for the badge, and they will let you use these images. And then here you can name it. So you've got a character limit. And then you can change the borders and make it fancy and do some things there. And then you can also choose the actual colors. So you can make it whatever color that you want. So here, this is the one that I created for the whole series right here. And then all you do is you so you basically send this via email. I don't know what it looks like on the recipient end. I should send one to myself. But basically, you say this person got it, and then here you can actually add what did they do to earn it. So you can actually upload an image or a link or something to show, yes, this person did it. And I just put it in the email notification, like this certifies that this person has gotten it. So, but again, right, anybody could create a badge, and it could be like, well, how do I know you're the TLC and not some crazy person awarding badges? So that does have to be some kind of verification process involved, and that's it. So it's extremely easy, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Because as you said, anybody can award a badge, but at the same time, it's pretty easy to do it, especially if if you've got a class or something, you just want to try it out, you can do this pretty easily, and it's free. Yeah, it seems more modular. That's kind of why I like them, because to me the certificate is more like, I don't know, I mean, I've never thought of a concept of a certificate to be, 4 different things in one certificate, whereas the badge, for some reason, I don't know why, maybe it's just a psychological mindset or something, it makes it okay that we mixed like 4 different things that might not necessarily be related into one thing to just say, okay, you were certified in all this stuff. Whereas the certificate to me is more like you're focusing on one specific thing or skill or area or tool. But since right now this isn't connected to any it's intrinsic motive. Well, okay, they could, I guess, fake it to get the iPad mini. I don't know. But, because this isn't really connected to anything quote unquote valuable for now. I mean, there's really no reason for them to fake it unless it meant them not or getting a job or something. I don't know. But that's a whole other. Okay, thank you.